So it has officially been 1 year since Sonic Frontiers has been out, and last time I talked about the game, I had some favorable things to say about it, but overall, I gave it kind of like a 7 out of 10, like the typical gamer score, right? Where I enjoyed the game a lot. However, it was filled with a bunch of other small problems that I had with the game, and while I saw moments of brilliance within it, I also kind of saw moments where I was kind of like, man, we could have really gone forward with this, or I just felt like the developers just either didn't have enough time or did not know what they were doing when they were making some of the sections in the game. And I kind of wanted to go over what I think of it a year later after all the DLC updates have came out. I recently replayed the entire game from scratch just to get a better overview if my thoughts on certain sections have stayed the same, and also if I thought they have improved, or maybe in some cases if they've gotten worse. I'm gonna leave timestamps for everything as well, and I'm not gonna be talking about the story until the end, just so I can prevent spoilers for those that have not played the game. Without wasting any more of your time, let's go ahead and start talking about the gameplay. If you guys don't know, Sonic Frontiers separates its gameplay into like 3, maybe 4-ish kind of categories. One is they've given Sonic more in-depth combat. There's an exploration portion of this game that a lot of people gave favorable reviews overall to. And then there is the cyberspace levels, which is the more classic Sonic levels in this game. Kind of in between thing would be kind of the mini games that they kind of included. So gameplay wise, when I first played the game, I thought the combat was fun, however kind of dumbed down and not in-depth, at least as in-depth as other games that have combat systems that I've played before. However, I gave it a pass because it is Sega's first time really giving Sonic a moveset like this, because in previous games, I mean, the closest we ever saw Sonic fight was maybe, Sonic the Fighters, or like brief things in like Sonic X and the Archie comics and stuff like that. So this was something that I was actually very excited to experience, and I have to say that a year later, I still enjoy the combat. However, it's still very simple. This is a step in the right direction, and I am going to give Sega credit for that, because if they actually build upon this system going forward, I'll be happy with it. And I'll be actually, waiting for the next Sonic game with high hopes that they're going to improve upon it, mainly based on the reception of this game. The second gameplay style that we got to play with Sonic this time around was really revolving around exploration. And I have to say, exploration in this game was probably the best part of it. Initially, when I saw trailers, I was like, man, Sonic's just running through an empty, realistic looking field. I know there's like rails in the sky that, and the pop-up in this game is really horrible. But if you can excuse those two things, just running around as Sonic, just marking something on the map and just running towards it, doing obstacle courses along the way and little puzzles, that I found to be really fun. Just zipping through an open land and just having a fun time, running around, jumping around Sonic, utilizing his abilities to the fullest, fighting even some of the mini bosses, which I found to be pretty fun. Really love the exploration in this game. And the third gameplay style that we'll talk about is the cyberspace levels. This was kind of similar in terms of control to the exploration part of Sonic Frontiers. However, this time around, you're actually just playing classic Sonic, starting at a stage and reaching to the end of it as fast as you can while collecting as many rings as you can, finding red rings. These stages did not control as well, again, like I mentioned in my first review, as well as I personally wanted them to. What I did find was fun was maybe if we went to some adventure style game, like levels that they tried to recreate with this new Sonic style, I felt like those stages worked better because there was more openness to them, and I felt like that worked with this version of Sonic. However, those classic stages from the Generations era, Unleashed era, Sonic Colors era of games didn't quite work well with this gameplay style, because those were meant to be super linear, and now we have this like kind of open Sonic feel, and Sonic's speed also did not even come close to those games, so it also felt very strange. But what I will say is something that I kind of disagree with a lot of people, is that I actually overall genuinely liked a lot of the cyber stages. There was a couple that I didn't like, particularly the 2D ones, but the 3D ones I enjoyed for the most part. There were a couple that were kind of misses, but again, overall, I really enjoyed them. I thought they were quite fun. I think part of the fun was just kind of getting the objectives, particularly the time limit. Some of the times were pretty strict, so getting the S rank in all the stages was really fun. The stages themselves, if you just played through them to beginning to end and you didn't really care about the objective, it was kind of a hit and miss. Overall, I liked Cyberspace. There was definitely things I didn't love about it, but I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time in Cyberspace. I wouldn't say I hate it as much as other people. Some people just straight out despise the Cyberspace levels. And then finally, one gameplay style I kind of want to touch upon is just some of the mini games, whether it was Ikuruga sections that you play towards the end, the horrible pinball game. I mean, there was just a lot of weird mini games in this game that I just don't feel like were like well put together, and some of them unfortunately are forced. I think the funnest mini game ironically is the big fishing game, because actually, as simple as it was very relaxing for me, and you actually got really good rewards for doing it. So whether it was story rewards, getting the Eggman voice memos, whether it was, you know, just getting ahead with Sonic's upgrades, or the story items that you needed to get a Chaos Emerald or to meet the next amigo that you had, it was all really good. The other mini games I could really do without, and I really hope that Sonic Team doesn't really put focus there, and they focus on like the main gameplay, the stuff that works in this game. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the DLC upgrades that they actually improved upon with the recent updates that happened this year. One of them was this like party theme. You can actually give Sonic different skins in the game, which just give him different shoes, or maybe, you know, give him like a face mask, like if you got the Monster Hunter DLC. The second update was, I actually felt like really good. It introduced a lot of new challenges that made the game more difficult, and it all revolved mostly around the exploration map for the most part. You got to experience getting new Coco, super collectible Coco, which I thought were really fun to try to get because it introduced some really fun challenges utilizing Sonic's moveset. And then there was also a nice reward with one challenge that you would do in every single map, which was a timed challenge. This one was kind of weird because the challenge itself was not that difficult. All you have to do is like collect these orbs and just try to do as many tricks as possible. So that was kind of weird, but overall, like, the reward you get for doing it was a spin dash, and that was amazing because you could use that spin dash in the cyberspace levels, which made the cyberspace levels really fun. And spin dashing across the world map, just like, I don't know why, it's like a simple moveset, but it really just improved Sonic's mobility to the point where I really hope that they implement this spin dash in every single game. And I think the other small addition that they made that I really enjoyed was being able to play music from past Sonic games. I'm someone that loves Final Fantasy 15 unapologetically, and one thing I liked about that was that it let you play others' Final Fantasy music while you were in the car with your amigos, so it didn't feel like you were just like driving. In this game, you can run around just to your favorite Sonic tunes, and I thought that was fun. It also gave me another thing to collect because you had to actually find the different songs around the map, so that gave me something else to collect, and I thought it was really fun. From here on out, I'll be talking about the stories, the character development, and the final, DLC story and what I think about it. I think, personally, while the gameplay of Sonic Frontiers was fun, I actually think what actually holds it up for me personally, it's the first story that they actually took seriously and they actually gave their all. I think Sonic Unleashed was the last Sonic story that I felt Sega took really seriously. That was one of my favorite Sonic stories, even maybe to this day, just because I felt like it was so well done, had a lot of emotional stakes in it, and it gave a lot of characters some time to shine, which I really appreciate. For me, I grew up with like this Sonic that was the cool Sonic, the shonen Sonic, you would say. And then after that, he became this like really, childlike Sonic that was just there to make jokes and just chase Eggman and stop him, and like really like cartoon of the week kind of stuff, and more, I guess the best way I can describe it, it was less shonen and more like Saturday morning cartoon vibes, and that just wasn't for me personally. There are things that are family oriented, right? There are movies that were maybe made for kids, like The Incredibles, but you adults can watch them and still have a great time. And for me, that was Sonic. And I think this is going to be the first game in a long time where a lot of people that are maybe in their 20s or even late teens, maybe even 30s, can really enjoy this story for Sonic, because it's kind of for kids, but it's also, it's mostly, I think, aimed towards that shonen audience again, which I very, very much appreciate. That kind of goes into maybe just like some of the darker themes revolving around the Coco. Initially, they just seem like these cute little creatures that you kind of have to save and kind of try to help out. And then you kind of realize that they kind of have like a dark history behind them, and I found that to be quite interesting. I think that a lot of the story elements that really shine is really through the character development of the characters, because it made me feel like validated that I was a Sonic fan for so long. I know some call me Johnny said something very similar to this, but it's genuinely true. I felt somewhat validated that I followed all these Sonic stories and they actually happened, right, in lore. Because I think previously in Sonic games, they would try to ignore the previous story and then just kind of like move on to the next thing. This is the first time where I feel like they've tried to kind of bring that all together, and I really, really like that. Sonic means a lot to me, and seeing them take it seriously makes me happy. And I think even though it's not like the most perfect story, obviously, like it's still like has a lot of holes and weird stuff in it, I just genuinely like the approach of them taking it more seriously. As I mentioned, I think the character development had a big part in me enjoying the story. I feel like every character had time to shine, especially towards the end. While I do think that this story is a bit stretched, like not everything was developed the way I feel like it should have. Like stuff with the Coco was kind of funny at times, but like it wasn't also always insightful. And I did feel that the new character Sage, while I actually really enjoy her character, I feel like that she could have had a little bit more to do with the story, or at least a little bit more scenes with Eggman to actually build that relationship more, because towards the end I kind of was feeling it, but not as much as I wish I could have. And of course, like the stuff that was really, really fun about this game, and the stuff that everyone's going to be talking about, like, and it's going to be cemented into the franchise's history, are the bosses in this game, because that is the most shonen stuff ever. If you like Dragon Ball Z, you'll love these boss fights. I will say those fights are pretty easy, possibly by design, because it's supposed to make you feel OP as Super Sonic, but I still had a lot of fun. It was a cool spectacle. There was some difficulties in it. I feel like they didn't really explain how to defeat some of the boss fights, and I think gameplay wise those could have been communicated to the player a little bit better, because I feel like a lot of it is trial and error. However, I still think it was really cool. Now finally, let's go ahead and talk about the Final Frontier update and what that brings to the table. Final Frontier was way longer than I anticipated it being. It was about 10 hours for me personally. It even gives you a separate save file, which is like insane. So let me get into that. Let me talk about the characters first. So the characters you get to play as is Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles towards this last portion of the game. I think that at some point they mentioned that Sage was going to be a playable character, and I guess that just never happened. I don't know, maybe that was like not communicated correctly to the players, or maybe they just didn't have time to do that. I was a little confused by that, but it's perfectly fine. I actually am happy with what we got. Amy, it's probably like the first time we get to play as her in a very, very, very long time, since I guess Sonic Origins and even Sonic Adventure before that, and Sonic Advance, Battle, like, you know, Dark Age Sonic stuff. So it's been a while since we got to play as her, and you know, lately they've been doing this like tarot card thing with her, which is a little bit strange, but okay, it's fine, it's cute. Like I'll let it slide. It gives her a little bit more personality, and they gave her some like kind of like I'm a symbol of love kind of character development, which is fine. It's like some Sailor Moon stuff, to be perfectly honest. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people that appreciate that. For me, I thought it was okay. Like it didn't bother me too much. The way she controlled, however, was actually really fun. She has a triple jump, which other characters don't have. She gets to glide, and she gets to use her tarot cards to like do a lot of stuff. She even gets to like traverse the world while doing in a spin dash, or with her tarot cards and kind of using them as a motorcycle was really cool. I will say that when I started playing as her, I noticed one thing I didn't really like is that in order to upgrade the Amigo characters, Amy, Knuckles, and Tails, you had to kind of find these Cocos throughout the map, and I didn't really love that. Either way, it ended up being okay. I got all the upgrades that I wanted to get for Amy. I didn't completely their skill tree, but I got the ones that I wanted, and they were really fun to control when I got that. The second character was Knuckles, and I think this is a common consensus throughout everyone that played this game, is that Knuckles does not control the way that we want him to. He has some fun moves. I really enjoy his gliding, actually. I don't enjoy the startup to it though. It's like kind of this like awkward like pause, and then he glides. And I think his climbing is actually really cool because it's really fast, and I really like that. However, I felt like during one particular section it was really hard to control, and it actually controlled a little bit awkwardly. I didn't really love using Knuckles that much, I will say that. I think he's my least favorite character to use, and that's a bit of a shame because Knuckles is actually a really, really big part of Sonic, right? He's like Sonic's first rival, so I kind of wish he controlled a little bit better, but he didn't, and it didn't control horribly. I just felt like it was a little stiff and it was a little awkward at times, so That was the most disappointing part of the update, was just the way that Knuckles controlled for me personally. And the final character we got to play as was Tails. Now Tails is a little bit divisive, mainly because he can't do a homing attack, or he can't really jump the way that we expect him to. So he can't really, a lot of the game is meant for to defeat enemies by doing homing attacks in a chain, and Tails doesn't have that. However, what Tails lacks in homing attack, he makes up for with his tornado plane that we haven't seen since Sonic Adventure 2. This thing is overkill, and I'll be honest with you, I can't even believe that they put it in the game because it kind of breaks it. It was really fun to control. Like, once you unlock that tornado ability, traversing the map was like just easy, like a little bit too easy. Like, it legit broke the game. There would be challenges specifically for Tails, and you could just bypass those challenges by flying past them. You know, the way they handled Tails was a little weird, but I'm okay. I think I'm okay with it. I hope they improve it in the next game and give him a homing attack. Still, it was just one of those things that I did enjoy for the most part. I just felt like while he controlled weird, his tornado move itself saved him as a character and just made him a little bit better than Knuckles. I still think Amy controls the best out of those three. It was still really fun. I don't know. Those characters, I felt, story-wise for the Final Frontier update though, had less to do than I initially thought they were going to have, and I kind of was a little disappointed in that. This game is not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction. I think every little thing that this game does kind of symbolizes that. Now, I have to mention this because it's the worst part of the update, and I have to say, for me personally, it's the difficulty spike. I know I mentioned how the game was very easy before, and I know that I wanted some difficulty, but some of this difficulty was just unfair. I did do it in normal, and a lot of people did change the difficulty to easy, so that could have been it. I kind of wish I did easy mode because I didn't realize that climbing the towers is so much easier in easy mode. There are these 4 towers that you have to get to as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy, and I think the Sonic ones were just horrible. I was playing that one game, I forgot the name of it, I'll put the title here if I remember it, where you're like this little kid that climbs up, and if you fell you have to like start over. It felt like that, but as a Sonic game, and that sucks. It kind of sucks when your biggest dread is like playing as Sonic trying to get through those towers, and you actually would have preferred to play as the other players in the update. The reward for doing all of this, right, for getting all the towers, for playing as other characters and getting the Chaos Emeralds in this final story, was this new final boss. I have to say, some people think that the Ikaruga fight was a little bit better, and some people don't like this fight because the tutorial for it is a little weird. Like, there's one part where you have to like kind of like dodge to actually target something, the final boss's neck piece. That part's a little weird, but other than that one little part, I actually think that this boss was really, really good and really difficult. And I say that as someone that maxed out Sonic stats. Like, I actually genuinely thought it was difficult, and I think that's a good thing. I think final bosses should be hard. I don't think it's unfair, actually. It's not like the towers or those Master Coco trials or anything like that. I genuinely think that the final boss is fair enough. I beat it in a 3rd try. It wasn't the most difficult boss I've ever beaten in a video game, and once I figured out like how to get through him by trial and error, trying different things, I eventually did it, right? The one thing I had to look up was just like that, like you had to dodge to aim at something else. I felt like that was a little dumb, but everything else worked really, really well, and I actually really enjoyed that final boss personally. There was a lot of cool moments in it, right? Like Sonic turning like what we call Super Sonic 2 or Cyber Sonic. I don't know what we're gonna call him. Honestly, I don't think the developers ever really pointed out what he's called, but the stuff they allowed him to do, like that Ultra Instinct move that he has, it's like really peak Sonic. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. There's even the ending where you team up with Eggman and he shoots you from a cannon through the moon and everything, and I thought that was really cool through the end. In the initial ending, when we talk about it the first time, where Sage kind of dies but she's not really dead, I kind of liked that ending. I mean, I don't know how they would kill her off in this update. I'm not saying I want her to die or anything. I don't want her to die. But I just felt like that sacrifice was like very heartwarming, and it gave some more character depth to Eggman, I feel. And I just feel like this update kind of took that away. The thing that cemented that Eggman truly cared about Sage was that he took the time to rebuild her, and that he was genuinely sad when she sacrificed herself and, you know, fulfilled her function. I don't know, it was a very happy ending, I'm sure, but it was kind of like the one thing I kind of wish they kept. Like, I wish that Sage still sacrificed herself and they brought her back. I felt like that would have been actually more impactful for me personally. But now, that all being said, do I think this update is worth it? Again, in some cases, you know, I do think that overall it's an upgrade, right? If I gave it a 7 out of 10 before, it's an 8 out of 10 now. I don't think it's a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. You know, those games are like favorite games of all time territory. This is a game I really enjoyed. I personally just found it to be very relaxing to play through, and the fighting and the shonen moments just really caught me off guard. Again, I love the characters, so anytime I see character development with these characters, I really like that stuff. So for me, I really like the game. Maybe I'll still give it like a 7.5. Maybe I don't feel comfortable giving it an 8, because an 8 to me is like an excellent game. 7.5 is like, this game is really good. I can recommend it to everybody, and some people might not like it, but I think for the majority, most people will. I think that's been the consensus so far. I don't feel comfortable giving it quite an 8, and I don't like giving scores in generals because, you know, scores change over time. You know what? I actually don't want to give this game a score, actually, because I could go between 7 one day, 8 the other day, maybe 6 some days if I really think about all the bad stuff I had to experience. Overall, what I can genuinely say is that I really enjoyed this game. I feel like if you're a fan of Sonic, you'll like this game at the very least. Maybe you might not love it. Maybe there is probably going to be some people that just don't like it at all. That's perfectly fine, and I honestly understand. I think this is a really fun game. I think it's worth playing. I just came back from seeing the Sonic Symphony concert, and I think I want to do a video about video game concerts in general, because that concert really motivated me to do a video like that. So seeing Sonic Frontiers music being played there and seeing how the crowd reacted, like, it just made me really happy to be a Sonic fan, as weird as it sounds. That's been my Sonic Frontiers video. I hope you guys like it, and I hope you guys we can have a discussion about it, because I really like the game and I would love to talk to you guys about it. So hopefully we can talk soon. Talk to you later, and take care.